Welcome back to the edge, and more edgy problems all the time in Sarasota County and as well the state of Florida, the undervote being a great big consideration, the warehouse in Sarasota County being a big problem. I have with me today, I have Susan Pinchon, well known for her efforts from the east coast of Florida. Where at in
Volusia County.
Volusia County, and where is that?
Volusia County is home to Daytona Beach and DeLand, Stetson University.
Mm-hmm. And Kitty Garber.
Hi, how are you?
And you're from Volusia also?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Okay. I'd like you to background yourself, starting with Kitty. Would you give me a little background on you so we understand your understanding?
Sure. Before I moved to Florida, I worked as a writer and editor in Washington, D.C., in the Washington area, and I worked for a black think tank for about 10 years.
A black think tank?
Right. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies.
That is a black African-American think tank?
Right. Right.
Okay, well, I mean...
And they use the term interchangeably. They'll say black elected officials. Those are the people that are served by the Joint Center. I was the editor of their public policy magazine. I wrote their political report for a couple of years. I edited books on a number of topics, redistricting. I wrote articles. I wrote about the Florida 2000 elections.
Why did you do that?
Why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was assigned to do that, but they paid me to do that. But of course, I was very interested in that as well. And I also wrote on other issues. I wrote on felon disenfranchisement in Florida and a number of other issues.
So you're happy with the change in the felon laws that are about to happen?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big step forward.
It is a step forward. Susan, would you tell us a little about yourself and your background and what got you started? Are you the founder of the coalition?
Yes, I am the founder of Florida Fair Elections Coalition. Well, my background in elections is not nearly as rich or deep as Kitty's. She really has an extensive knowledge and understanding of elections, and so over the past 2.5 years I've learned a great deal from Kitty and studied this issue pretty much 7 days a week for 2.5 years. I've done very little else. My background was as primarily in business. I worked for Honeywell as a technical sales representative. I went on to become a newspaper reporter, an investigative reporter. For the York County Coast-Star in Maine. It's a small paper. It was a part of the New York Times regional newspaper group.
Part of their syndication. And you said something about Paris.
When I was younger, you had asked me about my schooling at one point, and yes, I went to school in Paris when I was 19 years old at the American University. I love to travel.
You've got an international relationship a little bit in all of this?
I love to travel.
Good.
Haven't done any traveling in the last 2.5 years, but I do love to travel.
Okay. Well, today I'd like to talk about the issue of, as I said before, the 13th District and the Skip Campbell race, which a lot of people are unaware about, as to the undervote, the large number of undervotes. Plus, I'd like to have you, Susan, discuss a little bit about your experiences in the warehouse, the recount situation, what you came across, and some of that. Why don't we start with that and then come back to this matter of the undervote?
Well, I was very interested in the Sarasota situation from the day that it happened. It really grabbed me somehow, and so I made the trek across the state from Volusia County to Sarasota to attend the recount, which started on November 13th at 9 o'clock in the morning. And immediately I noted something was wrong, and what was wrong immediately was that they had teams of people recounting. Well, they were doing something with stacks of something.
They being?
Recount teams from apparently employees of the elections office or people who were helping the employees.
Local people? Or?
I believe they were I never got to talk to them, so some of them I now recognize from having come back here many times since, but at the time, of course, I didn't know any of them. And they had members of the political parties behind a blue tape on the floor, way over in the side of the warehouse in a long line.
A political party?
No, just representing political parties, the Republicans or the Democrats.
They all
There are
stood
people
behind the blue line.
people from the Department of State, people from Washington, D.C., and the ES&S representatives, and they were all wearing tags that said observer. Well, the rest of us were somehow delegated to being the public, and I never sort of quite understood why some people would get to be observers and some people would just be the public, but at any rate, to be serious about this, so they were behind a blue line. The public was standing behind a white chain at the end of the warehouse, and Kathy Dent, the supervisor of elections in Sarasota County, announced, and this is on DVD, all this is taped, so at some point
I saw a YouTube with Kathy Dent, and it was at the time she was trying to get a contract change with the county commissioner, and this is later, I suppose. This is...
Yes, and I'll jump right to that. I'll quickly finish that thought, which is that she announced that nothing would be announced until 3 o'clock that afternoon. And so we were watching people at a distance doing something, and I made the comment that we might as well be sitting at a coffee shop down in Sarasota as being at the warehouse itself. Well, state law says that we are entitled to witness, to observe the public counting of the vote, and to hear it called out. I had my statute book with me, my Florida statutes, and I made an objection, and the canvas...
at the time when the proposal, she was making this proposal?
No, this was in the morning.
So you made another objection?
I made several objections throughout the day. They borrowed my statute book and went and sort of huddled the canvassing board and some other attorneys, and so, about 10 minutes later came back and announced that it would be public, that the observers would be able to go and stand behind the counting teams, that 3 members of the public would be able to come on the other side of the chain, but they did call out every single poll tape from that point on, the vote for Vern Buchanan, for Christine Jennings, and for the undervotes. Later, I found out, because I never did get to go stand behind the counting teams until late that day, someone mentioned to me that they were not recording any of the seal numbers off the machines. Well, I said to someone, you are recording those, right? You should be getting those. Those seals are supposed to show that the machines have been sealed up since election night. Nobody was supposed to be in those machines for any reason. Well, come to find out, they weren't recording the seal numbers. They were just throwing them in a plastic bag with all the seals that had ever been used on that pile of machines throughout the whole election. So I made raised another objection, and they completely changed their procedures. The log books came out, the counting teams knew exactly what to do. It was clear that they had been trained what to do and had been told not to do it. Now, whether that...
So you're saying that up to the point of your objection, there was rather a cavalier or careless approach, and the minute you objected, they were organized to set up to do the appropriate thing.
Exactly.
So now, can you jump ahead to this other situation?
Yes, and then, so I believe it was after lunch that same day, on Monday the 13th of November, that Kathy Dent came in announcing that the Department of State was requesting the Sarasota Canvassing Board to sign a contract with ES&S to be a consultant to the Canvassing Board for the recount. And there's an there was a 2 or 3 page contract that I believe it's right here, and Kathy Dent did sign it.
But at the bottom, there's a bottom annotation that might be read out loud to people.
Yes. It was a little hard to tell what this contract was all about until you got to the 20th paragraph, which says, the contractor, being ES&S, shall perform services to provide consulting services in the recount of the November 7th election, and to including technical support in the analysis of the voting equipment and software, recount procedures, report analysis, or any other matter relating to the operation of the equipment. Well, I objected again because I told the canvassing board that I didn't feel it was proper for the vendor to be getting access to the equipment and the software and the records in the middle of the recount.
So you're saying they had total control from all ends?
Well, now the canvassing board, to their credit, of course there are 3